Hi, welcome to the quiz. You can answer along on quizalto.com, all for free. The exact URL of this quiz will be in the notes down below. Let's get started, good luck. What is the significance of using AWS Secrets Manager with AWS Lambda in AWS Verified Access? Optimize storage costs for AWS resources. Securely retrieve and manage sensitive information for serverless applications. Monitor real-time performance metrics of AWS services. Automate the deployment of AWS services. Using AWS Secrets Manager with AWS Lambda in AWS Verified Access allows users to securely retrieve and manage sensitive information, such as configuration parameters and API keys, for serverless applications, ensuring secure access and data protection. What is a potential risk of failing to review third-party IAM policies in the AWS Verified Access process? Security vulnerabilities and unauthorized access. Improved network performance. Lower data transfer costs. Increased AWS service limits. Failing to review third-party IAM policies in the AWS Verified Access process can result in security vulnerabilities and unauthorized access to AWS resources, potentially leading to data breaches. What does AWS Verified Access require users to use in addition to traditional passwords? A public Wi-Fi network. A second form of verification. Administrative access credentials. An SSL connection. AWS Verified Access requires users to use a second form of verification, such as a security key or mobile app, in addition to traditional passwords to enhance security through multi-factor authentication. What security measure does AWS Verified Access utilize to ensure secure user access to AWS services? Static IP addresses. Shared login credentials. Data mirroring. Multi-factor authentication. AWS Verified Access utilizes multi-factor authentication as a security measure to ensure secure user access to AWS services, requiring additional verification beyond passwords. What is required to enable AWS Verified Access for AWS accounts? Configuring identity and access management roles. Creating custom S3 buckets. Setting up a content delivery network. Deploying a VPN connection. To enable AWS Verified Access for AWS accounts, users need to configure IAM roles to specify which specific users or groups can access the account. What is a key feature of the validation process in AWS Verified Access? Assigns full admin rights to the third party. Automatically approves all IAM users. Ensures adherence to best practices. Disables access logging for resources. A key feature of the validation process in AWS Verified Access is to ensure that the submitted IAM policies adhere to best practices for access control and security. Why is it important for AWS users to enable CloudTrail within AWS Verified Access? To monitor real-time performance metrics of AWS services. To track user activity and API usage for audit and compliance purposes. To automate the deployment of AWS services. To optimize storage costs for AWS resources. Enabling CloudTrail within AWS Verified Access is important as it helps track user activity and API usage for audit and compliance purposes, ensuring transparency and security in AWS usage. What is the significance of using managed policies within AWS Identity and Access Management in AWS Verified Access? Provide pre-built access permissions for common scenarios. Automate the deployment of AWS services. Optimize storage costs for AWS resources. Monitor real-time performance of AWS services. Using managed policies within AWS Identity and Access Management in AWS Verified Access provides pre-built access permissions for common scenarios, saving time and effort in managing access controls. What role does AWS Single Sign-On play in AWS Verified Access? Centralized access management for multiple AWS accounts. Providing data analytics for AWS services. Automating AWS service deployments. Managing AWS billing information. AWS Single Sign-On provides centralized access management for multiple AWS accounts under a single authentication process in AWS Verified Access. Why is AWS Detective a valuable tool for threat detection within AWS Verified Access? It optimizes storage costs for AWS resources. It automates the deployment of AWS services. It monitors real-time performance metrics of AWS services. It helps analyze, investigate, and respond to security incidents. AWS Detective is valuable for threat detection within AWS Verified Access as it helps analyze, investigate, and respond to security incidents, providing insights and alerts to mitigate risks and protect against threats. How does AWS Verified Access help prevent unauthorized access to AWS services? By increasing the number of user accounts. By removing network firewalls. By limiting the use of encryption. By implementing strong authentication controls. AWS Verified Access helps prevent unauthorized access to AWS services by implementing strong authentication controls, ensuring that only authorized users can access the account. What is the role of AWS Certificate Manager in AWS Verified Access? Monitor real-time performance metrics of AWS services. Optimize storage costs for AWS resources. Simplify the process of managing SSL/TLS certificates for AWS services. Automate the deployment of AWS services. AWS Certificate Manager in AWS Verified Access simplifies the process of managing SSL/TLS certificates for AWS services, ensuring secure and encrypted communication, essential for verifying user identity and securing data. How does AWS Verified Access assist in protecting AWS accounts from unauthorized access? By implementing strong authentication policies. By enabling global access permissions. By increasing login attempts. By limiting data encryption options. AWS Verified Access assists in protecting AWS accounts from unauthorized access by implementing strong authentication policies that require additional verification steps, such as multi-factor authentication. What advantage does AWS Verified Access offer in handling user authentication for AWS accounts? Automatic software updates. Lower storage costs. Increased processing speed. Support for multi-factor authentication. AWS Verified Access offers the advantage of supporting multi-factor authentication for user authentication, providing an extra layer of security to verify user identities. How does AWS Verified Access improve user experience when accessing AWS services? By simplifying the authentication process. By reducing API query response times. By speeding up network connections. By increasing data storage limits. AWS Verified Access improves user experience when accessing AWS services by simplifying the authentication process, making it easier and more secure for users to sign in. What is the purpose of AWS Verified Access? To simplify user access to AWS services. To increase storage capacity. To automate network configurations. To enhance AI capabilities. AWS Verified Access is designed to simplify user access to AWS services by providing a secure and convenient way for users to authenticate and sign in. What is the benefit of using AWS Resource Access Manager in AWS Verified Access? Optimize storage costs for AWS resources. Automate the deployment of AWS services. Share AWS resources across multiple AWS accounts securely. Monitor real-time performance metrics of AWS services. AWS Resource Access Manager in AWS Verified Access allows users to securely share AWS resources across multiple AWS accounts, streamlining resource management and access control. What is the purpose of the AWS Verified Access Agreement review? To approve all IAM users. To validate the credit card on file. To confirm that the permissions requested are reasonable. To open additional regions for access. The AWS Verified Access Agreement review is conducted to confirm that the permissions requested by the third party are reasonable and align with best practices for security and access control. How does AWS Key Management Service enhance security within AWS Verified Access? By providing encryption key management for AWS services. By automating the deployment of AWS services. By analyzing cost and usage reports for AWS services. By monitoring real-time performance metrics of AWS services. AWS Key Management Service enhances security within AWS Verified Access by providing encryption key management functionalities, ensuring data protection and secure access control. What are the benefits of AWS Verified Access? Reduced storage costs. Increased account security. Enhanced user interface. Improved network performance. AWS Verified Access provides increased account security by allowing users to access AWS services using a mobile app or security key for multi-factor authentication. What is the purpose of AWS Security Hub and AWS Verified Access? Monitor real-time performance metrics of AWS services. Provides a comprehensive view of security alerts and compliance status across AWS accounts. Automate the deployment of AWS services. Optimize storage costs for AWS resources. AWS Security Hub and AWS Verified Access provides a comprehensive view of security alerts and compliance status across AWS accounts, enabling users to identify and address potential security issues proactively. What role does multi-factor authentication play in AWS Verified Access? Speeds up network connectivity. Enhances security by requiring multiple forms of verification. Increases data storage capacity. Simplifies API integrations. MFA in AWS Verified Access enhances security by requiring users to provide multiple forms of verification to access AWS services. In addition to passwords, what does AWS Verified Access require for user authentication? A public Wi-Fi network. A security key or mobile app. Administrative access credentials. A VPN connection. Aside from passwords, AWS Verified Access requires a security key or mobile app for user authentication to enhance security through the use of multi-factor authentication. How does AWS Verified Access help in maintaining compliance with industry regulations? By providing recommendations for AWS service usage. By reducing the cost of AWS subscriptions. By prioritizing performance and speed of AWS services. By ensuring secure authentication and access control to AWS services. AWS Verified Access helps in maintaining compliance with industry regulations by ensuring secure authentication and access control to AWS services, which is essential for meeting regulatory requirements. What is the function of the AWS Application Load Balancer in AWS Verified Access? Route incoming application traffic across multiple targets. Automate the deployment of AWS services. Optimize storage costs for AWS resources. Monitor real-time performance metrics of AWS services. The AWS Application Load Balancer in AWS Verified Access functions to route incoming application traffic across multiple targets, ensuring high availability, fault tolerance, and efficient load distribution. And that's a wrap. Thanks to everyone who participated. Remember, you can answer along on quizalto.com, where you can keep track of your progress and find much more quizzes. We hope you had a fun and challenging time. Until next time. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel for more. Hit the bell icon to be notified as soon as we upload. Please leave a comment if you have any thoughts or suggestions, and, if you think this video is worth sharing with someone who could benefit from it, please forward a link to them. See you next time. Thanks for watching.